regional forester, we engage a lot with the Lassen personnel. That's kind of an ongoing kind of a struggle. And the good news is I think most of these, like 170 positions that you would have in a similar fashion on the Lassen and Plymouth boards, where we have good people living in the communities, they're engaged with the communities, they're neighbors and friends, and they're working hard to try to do their job without as much interference as they get from above. And I think that's something that we need to value and treasure. And I'm not saying that the locals have it all or can say it all, but I think that the local voice should have some extra weight when it comes to making the decisions. So when we give input as a board or as individual constituents at the local level, and we're competing with the 70,000 postcards being generated by national special interest groups from people from North Carolina and around huge North Carolina, because that was what was kind of fed to us.
I should tell you that's where I grew up. So
well, I didn't.
If you heard the accent, maybe it's subliminal.
Well, my family has placed in North Carolina as well. And I mean, we were told, and this was years ago, that that person in North Carolina has as much to say as that. Well, I'm glad to know that you're here, because that means the North Carolina person is actually present on the landscape, and that's a step forward. And I think this board will work hard, I think, through Aaron and the rest of us to support what we can, to support you, to bring about a smart decision-making process in terms of how we use our resources, rather than this disengaged process that's got thumbs on the scale from people from far and wide that have no interest in what it means to live here.
I appreciate that. Actually, I'll back up a second, since this is my first time here with you guys, and tell you a little bit about myself and how I ended up the first supervisor of Modi. So I did grow up in North Carolina. I spent the first 22 years there. I graduated from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So I'm a Tar Heel, if you're a basketball fan. I am, we can talk. But I wanted to move west. And right after college, I moved to California into the seasonal fire position. Actually, with the National Park Service at the time. I had no idea what I was getting into. I'm pretty sure I scared my mother to death. And I worked for 2 years at Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park doing fire. Went back and got a graduate degree in forestry from Northern Arizona. Worked in South Dakota for a couple of years doing vegetation and fire ecology, which is really how I grew up in the organization. I've worked for the Fish and Wildlife Service, the National Park Service, and the Forest Service. I've been with the Forest Service 11 years. My husband is a career Forest Service employee. He has quite a few more years than I do. We have a 10-year-old daughter. That's the reason I moved to the agency, because Bill was a Forest Service employee. We've got 2 jobs in Utah. I was the forest fire ecologist. Bill was a hydrologist. Had our daughter, moved up to the regional office, really managed part of the fire management program from the regional office standpoint, really having to do with how we manage fire on the landscape. I became a line officer a little over 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, gosh, time's flying. And I was the district ranger in Lassen, so 50 miles north of Alturas. I was a district ranger right after the Berry Point fire started, was when I arrived. So I have a lot of emotional ties to Berry Point. Last year, about this time, it was announced that I was selected as the forest supervisor. So I moved 50 miles south into Modi County. And I my daughter was thrilled. She plays softball. In fact, part of the reason I have to get back is I have to go to a softball game tonight. We're very engaged in the community, doing a higher balloons because he's flying around. And Bill and Audrey and I really love living here. So I'm very happy to be in this job. Part of what you're saying about local communities need to be involved. I can talk about Berry Point, and I suspect you guys do a little bit of that story. We didn't do a great job interacting with our local community, and particularly the permittees and stakeholders, and I have a very strong commitment to do that in real time during the management of the fire. And last week on the field trip with permittees, we talked a lot about what that might look like if we have a significant fire this summer, because unfortunately it wouldn't be surprising if we do. And we need to know how we're going to have those interactions real time when we do it. As we go into forest plan revision, collaborative. We need to hear the squeaky voices, the minority voices. We need to hear the majority voices. And we need to be able to work through that. One of the things I really focus on as a leader is I don't want people in opposite corners and middle. Compromise isn't always the right way, but we've got to at least sit at the table and be willing to have dialogue. And that's what collaboration means to me. It doesn't mean that we agree, but it means we need to make sure we hear everybody's opinion. And I'll let Chris talk about whether the district ranger still has that power or not, but I will tell you that I feel very strongly that my role is to set these guys up for success and hear what their concerns are, and just to provide sidewalks to make them successful.
When I did my public administration curriculum primer for that one, the primer something that we're very passionate about, and of all states I had to pick to use as an example, I had to pick North Carolina.
Look, you got my story now.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, Amanda. You said there was 22 million board feet along the harvested each year off of Modoc.
Approximately, obviously, there's a little variability year to year with regional priorities, but that's about it.
And where does that lumber go to be processed?
Goes to different places, Chris.
Some of it goes down to burning, but it depends on who the winning bid is for that lumber.
And so that goes to my next statement is, looks like the old mill up in Alturas is starting a long way out there. Are we getting a little more up there in Alturas again?
Yes, and they're hoping to be able to have capacity of about 15 million board feet a year. They're trying to work back towards that.
Okay, very good. And then
We're very supportive of that. That's good for us as a board.
And the other thing I'd like to see you talk about your forest revision plan is that I'd like to see put in there, goes back to the harvesting in the mill and whatnot. The SRS was just reauthorized.
That's great news, isn't it?
And this is probably the last 2 years. And after that, we're going to go back to 25%, which is 25% will go to our little school here in Big Valley, which is probably a third less than it was when I graduated. And so these small communities are shrinking. So we need to amp up our grazing, amp up our timber harvest, amp up our stuff we do out there so we get the actual stuff going. And when we're doing that, we need to do the actual, don't be traded, do actual dollars for dollars. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, we need receipts rather than stewardship because that provides receipts to the county.
Yes. If we just go through the forest revision plan, you can make those points because we're going to be relying on the actual timber receipts.
I hope they continue to find ways to reauthorize this for us, but with 5% reduction a year, it does seem that they're beating us off. I'll be interested to see what Congress chooses to do with that. It's a good program for us and for the counties.
So if we can try, if you guys can try to be proactive as you're going forward to be ready to make that transition to help out our rural communities, I think that would be to our benefits. If you could work on that, I would greatly appreciate it.
I appreciate that. And having mills to send the timber to is really critical. Occasionally, we do have more remote sites where no one bids on our timber sales because of the haul costs. And so the further and further away the mills are from our lands, it makes it a challenge for us to manage the forest proactively. So any help you can provide us with that is appreciated as well.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to Chris. There's one other decision I just wanted to make you guys aware of. It's not really, didn't have a lot of meaning yet, but I just want to make it clear that it's a focus for the forest. One of the things that our forest leadership team made a decision on last week is that we want to continue to restore ecosystems and big landscapes. The big thing that it doesn't touch Lassen County directly, but that we as a forest need to focus on because of our role within the agency is the elephant in the room is wild horses for us. And we're going to continue to have to figure out what that means for the MODOC. We don't know. We're currently under litigation. Can't really talk about the specifics of that because of the ongoing litigation. But as we come out of that in this calendar year, we really need to figure out what that means for our long-term management. And as we go forth in our vision and we're looking at other priorities, we've got to figure out what a sustainable strategy for horses is. And we are focusing on having some kind of commitment for that. So you'll hear more about that as we move forward. We're just trying to get alignment right now with the region and nationally. And going back to your comments, I actually feel great deal of support from the region and the WO in being forest supervisor and having a lot of control. We are not being micromanaged in how we practice and how we do business. And I feel very optimistic that we're going to have those choices to make based on what's right for us.
That's good news. Thank you.
With that, I'll let Chris talk about some things. I'll see you after the
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How much time do I have to stay on schedule?
Budget, if you want this long. Yeah, to the point.
Well, I'm Chris Richardson. I am the new district ranger on the west side of the Modoc National Forest. This is my second time here in Beaver addressing the Board of Supervisors. I'm pleased to say that I was picked for the permanent position, and I'm happy to be here. I grew up in Butte County, native son of California, born and raised in Norville. I spent 40 years of my life down there. This is my first big exodus out of Butte County, and I'm very pleased to be here with my family. Aaron, you mentioned about 3 more to go, and one of those is the vacant range management specialist position on the big gallery. It's a Barbara Green. Some of you may have known her, some of you have worked with her. Right now, that position is vacant. It's a critical position to get filled, and we hope to have a list of candidates within the next 2 weeks and begin that review process and get someone here by until then, our new specialists up out of Devil's Head and Terry Mills will be doing another duty working with the permittees down here. In terms of
On that note there, can the local cabins association or individuals, can they write you a letter asking, that they have certain qualifications or parameters that they would like to see that person having gets that position filled, or is that
I don't think it's out of line. For me, great communication skills are going to be at the top of the list, and then having a solid science background in arrangement management, science is going to be another one. But if you've got other things there that you think are going to be specific to that position, by all means, write a letter or drop me a line, your name, and they'll be considered as moving into, again, projects that are, down here on the southern part of the forest. We had a day fire last year, we burned about 2 miles from where I was living on Dave Roads that got me close and personal with the fire. And about 33 acres of that burned was on Modoc. It was in Modoc County, it burned right near the community lookout. And so we decided to move forward with salvage operation. We analyzed that, and we actually sold that to SPI, and they should be beginning operation on that shortly. And it's going to be about 300,000 to 400,000 more feet coming out of that in 30 acres. There will be a timber sale called Ditch that will be put up for sale this year. That's about 4.2 million more feet. And that seems to be a sustained deal unit. And then there's a second timber sale next year. Hopefully we sign that in November or in the early spring. And that's the ash timber sale. That's about 6.8 million more feet. Again, in terms of areas of great importance to Forrest and myself, building partnerships, building long-lasting relationships with community members, with organizations in the area. And so we have a couple that are ongoing, and one of the big successes that we have is the Sage Step Restoration Project. And granted, the majority of that is up north on the Devilhead Ranger District, but Forest Service, working with local permittees and NRCS, News Fish and Wildlife Service, has secured several $1 million into on-the-ground implementation, habitat restoration, and forest for sagebrush. And that reauthorized 5 grazing permits. And so those were reauthorized for 10 years, so only valid through 2024. And we issued 22 annual operating instructions. So with that, it kind of wraps up what I wanted to share with you today. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to continue.
On these sagebrush programs, is there any money to subsidize the trucking instead of just letting those trees lay? To, get the trees into a power plant?
So that's a good question. Some of the money that we're getting this latest round will go into to subsidize the fall timber sale because the bottom fell out of the juniper and mill closed in the Cape Falls. Right now, the most economical way to treat that trail is to drop it and let the woodcutters get in there and get after it. And so we're trying to get the most bang for the buck in terms of acres treated. But again, if you have an interest in doing something,
Well, we have a large biomass plant in Hood Lake Valley. The restrictions on them getting enough material is the trucking cost. They can go, I think it's, 100 miles, but beyond that, it's cost prohibitive to bring material into what they can.
There are periodic, very short turnaround, it seems like, opportunities to include that in some of our offers. I don't know if it's enough to cover that kind of distance. The trade-off here, and this is the tough dynamic, is stewardship contracting is actually a better fit for that than it takes away the receipts. So finding that balance between wanting to be able to cover some of that versus having receipts for the county is something we're going to need to talk. We're going to need to put everything on the table and figure out where that balance is.
Are we in any danger of losing our sustained yield unit? Because our bills are not reliant, or are we still going to be able to keep that?
concerns have been raised about that very, very point. There is no movement on the MODOC to get rid of that sustained yield.
In fact, I've seen models where it can be a very effective management tool. You just have to figure out how to get the energy behind it and have a place. If the mill were open here, it would be a little easier to get some of that energy. We got to figure out all the logistics pieces of that to get the energy about making that really a very active
It
unit.
makes no sense to maintain the yield unit if you're not going to have a place to focus the materials to. So we need to try to get that resolved, and then it requires both parts to really make it happen.
Absolutely.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you guys for inviting us. And, I was talking in the break. We're happy to come chat with you guys as much as makes sense for you. So we need to kind of, with us being with our jobs, figure out that relationship. I don't know how often you'd like an update from us. Annually suffices if you'd like it quarterly or
We
bi-monthly.
never are.
I will actually a car out when it comes in. But we'd be happy to engage with you guys however you'd like. Keep working.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys.
We're going to move on to meeting one, Ryan Building. Open the public hearing at 11:05. Take it down.
Anyone who wishes to speak, public or staff, please stand and raise your hand.
And be in the audience, please speak on this side.
Do you swear to the testimony that you give in this proceeding that the proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Good. Thank you.
This is Haley Roberts, Assistant Director of Planning and Building Services. This is a public hearing to consider the administrative abatement of public nuisance described as a large accumulation of miscellaneous junk items, household trash, and other debris, and unsecured, reliable, and unsafe safe to enter. We would like to also secure against entry as part of that. The second page of the packet goes into chronology, and this really, most recently, this property has been on the radar in the past, but most recently, starting in 2012, it came to attention from environmental health. We get reports from environmental health quite often on a variety of things, from dumping to waste disposal, what have you. The chronology goes through some of the efforts that we went through to abate the property, and the inspection records are also found in the packet from Officer Hedgerton. So I can answer questions if you'd like me to. If the board does order abatement, it would start with a lien on the property for the costs incurred to date for trying to correct this issue, which is $2,345.30. At the conclusion of the abatement procedure, we would come back to the board and there would be an updated lien for the costs of the abatement. And so there's a resolution in the packet that would give staff direction to initiate the abatement, and we use this as our starting point to do what we need to do in order to get the property cleaned up. As I said, there's pictures in the packet as the packet as well. There's also graphics showing the location in Doyle. The referral from the Environmental Health Department, or the notice from the Environmental Health Department is on page 29 of the packet, if you're interested in that. Unless there are specific questions.
Question on the Jack report.
Yeah, I was looking here at your administrative costs. You have your mileage at 50 cents a mile. Is that an average over the last 2 to 3 years? Or?
I think that's a prescribed amount.
That's what?
That's a prescribed amount, and I'm not sure about all the background on it, but it's a number that we're tied to use. So I can.
The current IRS reimbursement rate is 57.5 cents a mile.
This rate was also 15.
It may not have been updated since the last release.
It's been about that.
Question for Richard. Is there property taxes on that property?
I don't have that information with me. I would guess yes, but
that's my understanding, yes.
any questions from the public on that report? Seeing none, I'm going to ask clerk if you have any quick comments. Anybody wishing to speak in opposition to this proposal? Anybody wish to speak in support of it? Seeing none, I'm going to back to the board.
I'll make the motion that we start enforcement on C1 on property and Doyle.
Motion accepted. Any more discussion? I'm sorry for the board.
Supervisor Chapman.
Aye.
Supervisor Allen.
Aye.
Supervisor Murphy.
Aye.
Supervisor Freeman.
Aye.
Chairman White.
Okay. Public hearing is 11:15, so let's take up page 1. Mr. Chairman, White Clean Energy Fund, limited liability company in California, has invited the Board of Supervisors to adopt a resolution to create a property tax assessment district or many districts for the purpose of financing various infrastructure. My recommendation, it's all outlined in my memo to you. My recommendation is to decline the request to adopt the resolution based on a couple of points. What White Green is trying to do, and some of you may be more familiar with this than I am, it's one of the contractors of the California Home Finance Authority. They've come up with a financing scheme to provide improvements to private individuals' homes in terms of electric car charging, solar, etc. And in my view, at least, what they're asking to do is to hijack the property tax system in order to collect the payments. And so I think that's a dangerous business to get into for what should be a private party transaction for the county to get involved in. I also think there's some concern that mortgage companies would have with regard to this, to the extent that these assessment districts are established, they would then be in front of a mortgage holder without any real say in that. So I view it as a scheme that the county shouldn't be involved in, and that's why I made the recommendation. I will advise you that the representatives from Wybreen asked that the item be postponed and reconsidered. I informed them that I did not intend to recommend that that be done, but I thought that I would let you know.
I went to a couple of meetings with the tax collectors agency or organization, and this is a problem. And the problem is that it can cause default, and people who may not have any other loans against their property, now they cannot pay their taxes. And as a county, then we sell that at tax sale against them. And a lot of concerns with tax collectors, elderly people or people who really don't understand the situation, being taken advantage of, and then we're put in a position of selling that property to pay off the loan. So I do want you guys to realize that what Richard is saying is correct in the fact that this system can be not beneficial to the public.
Anybody else in the back?
I would like to say that
Must have taken made to record.
sure.
We can hear you.
Robbie Manning, living in Beaver, across the street. Worked all my life. We're taxed to death. The working man is bleeding, and there should be no more taxes. Raising property taxes, creating new ones is just, it's unbearable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Being none, let's play the board.
I move that we not adopt this resolution and keep private hands on the solar system. I think there's a lot of fraud going on right now with the solar systems, people coming in, offering the gold, and there's a lot of difference in quality, solar panels, and you just create a big mess, and we have people in front of us all the time saying, well, it's our fault that, they got stuck with bills.